Now don't get me wrong, I love my father, but we are fundamentally different people. Though I've always lived for a good story, he was the kind of man to skim the dialogue in a good film and skip over to the action scenes. In respect to the people like my father, we're gonna try and keep this shindig brief. Here are all the good folks you'll need to know for this kerfuffle. We'll start with my caring, wonderful wife Mari, who happens to be an excellent social worker and an incredible best friend. The social worker part is what's important for my spiel here. Next up is my old and good comrade Nikolai, a fellow rogue since childhood, who now makes a living as a child psychiatrist. What we care about for the shebang here is that he was a self-taught code monkey, as he called himself, and a technology enthusiast. Now, before we get too deep into it, this doesn't have a clean, clear-cut ending, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm hoping if I can help you be entertained for a few minutes, maybe you'd be able to help us out too. Now, the last person you need to meet is yours truly. My name is Clyde Fletcher Tesla. I'm an Ontario private investigator and, moreover, a guy who got a package on his front door recently. Today's Friday, a week or so ago this October. While many were coming home from happy hour, I was coming home from a week-long case. I'm rambling, but let me tell you, I was surprised to come home to a parcel that arrived, no postmark, and contained this mask, this letter of incoherent rambles and tangents, and this funky little guy, or gadget I suppose, I'm not sure what to call it yet, but to understand why or what I had just received, I started looking at the mask first. Growing up, my grandparents are native and had a penchant for masks and the art form of them, which lent me an appreciation for them as well. Unfortunately, even with my prior experience, neither my grandparents nor myself could identify what region or even cultural influences were associated with our new friend. So the next step seemed to be visiting the Indigenous Cultural Center in our town, and they told me that the mask belongs to no known culture. This is where the berry dilemma comes in. The only discernible feature of the mask is the mouth pigmentation. I noticed seeds in the teeth, and one smell was enough to prove it was a red currant, which we have an abundance of around here. Unfortunately, a quick wiki search proved that the red currant is abundant nearly everywhere, a nod to the bigger problem that there is literally nothing special about this mask. The red pigmentation could have been from anywhere, and the ash from a fire. Point is, I hit a wall with the mask, and the next step was a visit to the good comrade Nikolai's.
Well, Clyde, you've brought me some strange shit before, but this is... Okay, from what I can tell, it looks like you've given me a pile of crap that someone's taped together. I can't tell what goes to what, but there is a micro SD in there. Bad news, though, it looks pretty much melted in there. Tell you what, give me some time with it, and when I get off work tomorrow, I'll tinker around. It looks like it's welded into the reader, at least. So it may be salvageable, but I'll get back to you.
With the good comrade tinkering with the gadget, I immediately went home and consulted with my wife in regards to the letter.
Well, the incoherent rambling aside, there's no formality to the letter. There's no proper introduction, there's not a conclusion either. One thing I am seeing a lot here, though, is that there's a lot of phonetic spelling and a lot of dropped consonants. The most important thing is, remember when we moved from up north and we were surprised at the subtle accent differences? There's a lot of phrasing like that in here, and please keep in mind that I'm no linguist, so this is just my own personal experience, but it makes me think that the writer had equal exposure to different regional dialects, and they incorporated those accents into how they were spelling some of these words.
My wife, who is a more cultured and all-around knowing person than I, and myself worked long into the night compiling a list of possible regions linked to the phonetic spellings in the letter. It was admittedly a sketchy method, but it's all we had after the mask was a bust and the gadget was currently being reverse engineered by Mr. Dacre. After a quick game of connect the dots, we finally had something. Each phonetic influence came from a city with an emphasis on rail. Once we referenced a Canada Rail Network map, it was almost obvious. Whoever had sent the package was a wanderer, that's for sure, seemingly headed southbound, but then what? Well, that's when you follow the rails and you find out. I decided to start following the tracks by my hometown's Via Rail station, a place where the good comrade and I had hopped boxcars together as kids. My first day on the rails was cold. A little rain is fine, hell welcome, but believe you me, the wind chill will remind you real quick just how old your bones are. Just as soon as I was getting used to a life of misery, Nikolai called, told me to get down to Toronto, Prano. And boy did I ever once I heard what he had to say. I met him up at a rural family member of his house on the outskirts of the GTA. He was a bit of a mess, but it was reasonable under the circumstances.
There's a USB hookup in the thing after cracking the shell. It's real jerry-rig shit. Wires not snipped right, circuits were burned, just a real mess.
Alright, Nico, so, you want to run me through again one more time why I meet you in your car outside your grandparents' house instead of at, I don't know, your own house?
Data was real slow copying onto my flash drive. When I noticed, it was using my network connection and pinging another IP address. I think plugging it into my desktop automatically set my IP to another server.
So sorry, good comrade. If I knew this would have happened, I wouldn't have gotten you involved. Listen, I usually bring this with me on cases, but I want you to keep it in your boot just in case. It's not much, but it should keep you out of any unruly shenanigans, let's just say.
Well, after taking an axe to the damn thing, I started getting pebbles thrown at my window at night. I get up early, and everyone hears strange shit all the time at night, so at first I didn't look into it. One night, I was up late working on a project right beside my window anyways, so I took a peek and saw this outside.
The only lead that the good comrade could extract from the gadget was a set of coordinates. It was the only file on the thing, a short text document that Nikolai had immediately texted to me and I meant to check the next day. It got put on the back burner, however, when my wife got a nasty fever and I wanted to take her to the hospital. When I had the chance to attend afterwards, it had been raining cats and dogs the night before, and all that was at the coordinates was some disturbed grass, my combat knife, and a waterlogged iPhone, the good comrade's iPhone. I took it to a specialist who was able to restore some of the data, albeit with some deformities.
Good comrade, I'm sorry, but I absolutely can't wait any longer. I threw a stone through my granddad's window. I've gotta... I gotta do something. Get back. Get the fuck back!
Now, I'm trying to give you just the facts. I'm a PI, that's my job, and not only that, your time is valuable. Like I said at the beginning, I'm already trying to keep this whole bonanza brief. Trying to clock in about 8.5 minutes. But to whoever's watching this, this is where I humbly ask for your help. Please. Good comrade, we're all still out here looking for you. I don't know if you survived, but what I do know is that you were a fighter, and I know you wouldn't leave your good comrade alone. Please come home, and if you're gone, for good, I mean, I promise I'll see to it that we'll get an eye for an eye. Don't you worry, good comrade. I promise that we're gonna be hopping boxcars again real soon. See you again, friend.